Hi everybody, welcome back to Hometown History, and we have an interview with Lavetan and Paul Schiffbauer Jr. It's February 3rd, 1943, 80 years ago. Midway through World War II, the torpedo strikes, the troop transport Dorchester goes black, and confusion reigns, but four chaplains become light in the darkness. York rabbi and Chaplain Alexander D gives his gloves to a soldier. He has another pair, he says, only he doesn't. He's not leaving the ship. Life jackets are gone. Goode and three fellow chaplains give their life jackets to panicked soldiers, and the ship is going down. Soldiers and lifeboats look back. The four chaplains are singing and praying in English, Latin, and Hebrew. Their arms are locked. Hope amid despair. The four chaplains go under with 668 others, but 230 survive to tell of the chaplain's valor, a lesson for the ages, and for us to consider, will our valor shine when our courage is tested? Our main bar tonight was about the four chaplains and the history of the incident and Rabbi Goode's connection to York. So tonight we have Lavetan, leader in the Four Chaplains Memorial, and Paul Schiffbauer Jr., marketing consultant with a deep interest in the story of the four chaplains. So can you tell us how you got involved with the memorial?
Okay. I'll go first, but no, I always attended the breakfast many years ago, I think almost from day one. And then in about 2003, 4 or 5, somewhere in that area, I started showing up with Alan Damashek and Gordon Fryrick. And if any of you know them, you don't get to just sit, you get to do. And I've been with the committee and then on the board and been in this position for the last too many years, a few years. But that's how I got involved with it. There's also a great deal, which we'll talk about in a little bit, of some family ties to this. And I'll tell you some stories about that too.
Wonderful.
If we're being completely honest, and twisted my arm about this. Kidding, but now I've known Luke for about a year now, and several months back he talked about the Four Chaplains and what it meant, the history. He shared the story with me, and I took a lot of interest in it. I was a huge history buff growing up, and just the fact that it's so rooted in York, and then as like a larger picture, the ultimate sacrifice and serving others in a really unique circumstances. I think it's something we all can apply in our lives.
Well, and so I'm a local history teacher, and I'm really into local history. And about 2 months ago, when Dami, Jim, and I were talking about our next episode, Jim said, let's do it on the Four Chaplains. And I said, who? And I didn't know. And Dami was like, you don't know? And I'm like, I don't. And I was like, thanks for shaming me, number one. And number two, started doing my research. And I had, fun isn't the best word. I had the most just profound time researching this topic because it hits you on so many different levels. Talking about religion and faith and brotherhood and community. And so for me, we went through those takeaways of what was most important from tonight's lesson. Would you two share what is like one takeaway from this story that you think people should know about the Four Chaplains? It can be examples we shared, or you two are the experts. If you know some things that we didn't include, now would be the time for that.
I think the biggest takeaway I personally take away from it was the four gentlemen in particular. Once they met in chaplain school, in the military, they kind of developed this mantra where it was, we can be victorious if we work together. And that is so true in all retrospect, not even in wartime. If we truly collaborate, that's when we make progress, in our communities and, amongst one another.
I think that the service over self is the point that we really emphasize and try and is that what we want to carry forward. And I heard stories, again, I'll relate the personal parts of this. I heard stories of my great-grandfather who came from Latvia, and they got started picking up scrap in the middle of the street because the Americans were so wasteful. And my dad used to tell me that in their heavy Russian Yiddish accent, this is such a rich community. It's your obligation. It's the obligation to give back. And I think that this story that with Rabbi Goode being here, and again, I'll relate some other parts to it, But that's the part that I think that's important for the next generation. And that is why, did I drag him in? I did drag him in because it's important that we get to that next generation and carry that message of the greatest generation and what their dedication. They didn't think twice about what they did. I mean, I wish I had that. I would want to be like that.
Lou and Paul just hit on, it's all about relationships. If you form relationships with people, you will go above and beyond to help them. And so the fact that Paul was asked by Lou to join, and he said yes, means that clearly Lou is a mentor, and he's somebody that he wants to be around, or else he wouldn't have chosen yes. Same for the educators in the room. How many of you would consider yourself an educator? So about a quarter to a half of you. So you know if you're in education, it has to do with relationships. If you form bonds with your kids, they will go above and beyond because they care about you, because they know that you care about them as well. Yeah. And Doc, I'm sure you have that in your Sunday school.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's all about forming relationships. And when we're talking about mentors, I think about Jim McClure, who is our third partner that you never get to see on the screen. He brought us together.
Yeah.
And he was like, would you like to collaborate on educational history projects? And we said, yeah, because the whole point of Hometown History and tonight is to get the word out about these local history events and the heroes in our own community.
Be proud.
Yeah, be proud of our culture, be proud of our history. And that brings us to, the topic of the Four Chaplains. So the initiative with the memorial and the breakfast is to provide scholarships and put a spotlight on people who are making a difference. So do you want to tell us more about the annual event and the scholarships that you offer?
Be happy to, but for the educators in the audience here, I don't know if anyone knows this, but rabbi in Hebrew is educator. Okay, so I think that's an interesting way to tie it in. The breakfast itself everything is dedicated to giving out scholarships to kids who graduated from Alexander D. Goode School. I think it's important that we use people within the community who have done some incredible work. It's public notice. Jim is going to be our honoree, along with Sarah Stockton, who apparently has adopted or fostered, over 100 children.
Wow.
She's amazing. She has a book on that.
So when we can take those examples and the things that Jim does and then all of our past honorees, we are in a position to be able to go out and sell a table and bring people in. We bring speakers in, and for the first time this year, sorry, the little sales pitch here.
That's what we want.
We're having a rabbi who's going to be speaking. And some would say we have been doing this for 31 years, and this is the first time we had a rabbi. And it's because, I said this to I think I said it to you folks in some email, we don't want this to be a Jewish event. It happened to be in a synagogue, that's great, but the idea here is that we bring everybody together. And that's what the event is all about. And then we provide awards to the children, and we're actually now have grown into two breakfasts, one for the sponsors, and now through the guidance of Terry Genron from the York County Military. Sorry, somebody's going to fill that in for me. But Terry did a really interesting thing by getting us involved with a second breakfast, where now we're bringing the kids in and being able to have them hear a speaker during school, which I'm sure is always fun, but I think most of them have earned the ability to have this invitation be presented to them. So now we do it twice, and it's very inspiring to see the kids. These are the brightest, these are the kids that are going to go out and do something. Some of them are JROTC, some of them are going to go into trade school, some of them are going to do. So it's a pretty cool program. May the 10th, 6:45. I think there's brochures back there on the table, just in case. I wonder who brought them. But that's in essence, that's the event.
We focus tonight on Rabbi Goode, and one of our goals is to talk more than just about facts and numbers, to tell the story and the human experience, because that is what's relatable. So were there any parts of Rabbi Goode's story that you feel we need to highlight more, or that we didn't include in our original presentation?
Yeah, I'm going right for it. So I think that the point of Rabbi Goode's story goes further. And Mr. Leeks, thank you for telling your part of it, because my father was in that Boy Scout troop, by the way. And actually, I didn't know this until about 5 or 6 years ago. As we all do, sometimes we can't sleep well at night, so we go on Facebook and we, surf through. And George King had posted some pictures of the Boy Scout troop that his father had been involved with. And so as I'm looking through the pictures, I'm looking real careful. There's my father.
Wow.
Is in the Boy Scout troop. So there's about 5, 6, 7 pictures. The interesting part, and how does it, the rest of the story is, how many people have driven by the JCC? We all have. And what's the big sign out on the front? Everyone is welcome. So I think the part that I guess I want to emphasize to you is that Rabbi Goode was way ahead of his time.
Right.
And by providing the Boy Scout troop with a non-denominational, everyone was welcome and everyone joined. I also like the part, and I did hear from my father, I didn't know that he was in that particular troop, but they did do Shabbat services on Friday night when they did camp out. I do remember hearing that. But my point to it is that the Rabbi Goode was ahead of his time. And so, but even back in the day, because during the Depression, the KKK was very popular here, and everything was separated, without a doubt. My great-grandfather, probably the first president and founder of the JCC, was involved with Rabbi Goode, and my dad went through the program as a scout. I went through the program as a scout, and I think we told the story to Jim. There was a history passed on that for that scout troop, that each one of the generations of my family provided, as you had talked about, provided some financial resources for kids to go to camp. So again, it's something that needs to continue moving forward. It's more relevant today than it ever has been, and I think we need to look at that.
I think this growing up as a child in the 90s and early 2000s, I never thought once, oh, they're Catholic, I can't talk to them.
Right.
Having this almost inclusive environment around me. Of course, the world's not perfect. But the fact that Rabbi Goode, decades previous, breaking barriers locally, like in our neighborhood and our communities for that matter, it's kind of mind-blowing to think.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I think it's interesting to point out that it resonated with more people than just the Boy Scouts, because the Boy Scouts grew up and they taught their children. And we have multi-generational Eagle Scouts who are going on to carry that legacy. And there's a school with kids that are getting the scholarships from the Memorial Fund. It's just more than integrating the Boy Scout troop. It just resonates it's far-reaching, his legacy. So I think that's important to remember.
I'm getting all the feels. This is so nice. This is just so awesome. I love my community. So as we're nearing the end of our interview process, we want to give you a chance to share out if there is one thing that we missed about Rabbi Goode, or about the story of the Dorchester, or something about the memorial, even your own personal connection. Now's the time.
I think seems so minor, but you both mentioned it in our earlier segment, how a lot of soldiers in the water, they heard these prayers, and it was comforting to them. I mean, even outside religion, we truly don't know the impact we have on others. So I feel like it's really important for us individually, rather than, hiding all the good things we might do or inspiring things that we want to put out there, is have conversations with people. If it's positive, constructive, share it with others, because you have no idea who you might be impacting out there.
I'll touch on the fact that if any of you remember the JCC on 120 East Market Street, Joe Sperling was the executive director, and some of you are smiling to that and remember that. I think the thing that that it still rings a bell with me is 94% of the membership of the Jewish Community Center is not Jewish.
Right.
That has been a traditional foothold in this community since it was founded in 1910. So I think that's it. The other part that I guess I would like to say is the Charles David, the fellow that was the black sailor who jumped. He was a cook. He jumped into the water. He saved, but the rumor is about like 90 of the men and pulled them to the net. I can't stop thinking about that part of it too, and how it's a part of Rabbi Goode's story, and how it continues to feed really good stories and things that we need moving forward. Some say that, as I get older, I look at I want to make sure the world is here for my granddaughter. I want to make sure that the world is here for my grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way we make it a better place to be, by trying to emulate those stories, by trying to live the stories as you have talked about, trying to help locate somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's the important part that Rabbi Goode would want to know, that his legacy in York is we're trying to continue, and hopefully with younger groups, younger people coming into our board, then we're going to be able to continue that. And maybe the message is still going to be the same, but it's going to reach another generation.
Well said.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for doing this.
Yeah, it's definitely our pleasure.
Questions?
Does anyone have any questions or comments for the gentlemen that are here with us tonight? You don't have to, it's okay. I would just like to say that good works, I think you can relate it to spare change. It doesn't matter how small, it can be pennies, but it adds up. And after a while, those little acts, they mean something, and you might not know it, but if every day you can just do something good. It could be saying hi to someone on the street, after a while, it really will make a big impact, yeah.
Thank you for joining us tonight and for stepping into this gorgeous temple. I'm hoping that you're feeling the love like I am tonight, and thank you also for opening the temple to us. Generosity is just amazing, so thank you.
Thank you, everybody.